Blog Talk Radio. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Stress is Stressing Me Out podcast. I am your host, Maki Adeyemi, and today I want to start with an email that I received yesterday, and it was in regards to a podcast I did about 2 weeks ago, I would say, about faith and stress. So this person wrote to me. He says, "Dear Maki, Satan is in hell." And then he signed it Satan, which is a little mind blowing there within itself. I want to address this. What we have to understand is that when we talk about Satan, before I say that, let me say this: Satan is not in hell. Hell is ultimately going to be his home in the lake of fire with all of his demons. But he's not there in hell right now. So where is he? Well, the Bible tells us that he goes to and from in the earth, seeking whom he may devour. And he also has access to heaven. If you will go to the book of Job, the second chapter, and read that whole chapter, it will explain that Satan still has access to heaven. But why? Because Satan is responsible for all the chaos and the havoc that we see today. He is the prince of what we call the prince of the airs, okay? The Lord is still in control. And you have to understand, if you are a believer, and I am a Christian, I am a believer, Satan can't do any more to you than what the Lord will allow him to do. He can't just come and do things to you. He has to go before the Lord and ask, okay, if it can be done. And the Lord will either say yes or he will say no. Okay? Satan is a created being. Us humans, we're created beings. The animals, even the angels, they are created beings. Okay? Satan is a created being. Okay, so let's understand that. The Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13:12, and I want to go ahead and read that. It's not a long verse, and that is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12, and it says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known." I want to talk about, for now we see through a glass darkly. I know many of us have questions, why the Lord allows this to happen, or why this situation. When we talk, why did September 11th happen? Why did the Holocaust happen? We all have questions. Why does Satan have access to heaven and he's wreaking havoc on the people here on the earth? So right there, what the Apostle Paul has said, we see through a glass darkly. And what that means is we don't know the reasons now. We don't know the reasons why right now. But one day, the answers to that question and many more questions that we have will be revealed. We see through a glass darkly. We don't know, we don't understand why these things happen. Not just the stuff that happens on a national scale to us as a country, But to us personally, the things that we go through, the things that we did go through, the things that, as I said before, that we're going through right now. We see through a glass darkly. We want to know why. One day, one day that we will know the answer to that question, and it will one day be revealed to us. If you have any questions still about that, you can email me at sismo1875 at gmail.com. Okay, so let's get into today's topic. And today's topic is, how do men and women approach stress? Is it the same? So how do men and women handle stress? Do they handle it differently, or is it the same? So while I was researching this topic, and I found some stats, and the stats that I found, they didn't have a year attached to it. This data didn't have the year attached. So it says that 37% of women say they are stressed, while 31% of men say they are stressed. So there's really not a big difference between 31 and 37. It is, but it isn't. So let's go on. So I would imagine, to me, I would think those are low numbers, because today with coronavirus, unemployment, and virtual learning, I would think it's probably higher than that. But those are the recent stats that I found. There again, as I said before, there's not a year attached to it. So, why do men and women handle stress differently? Well, one of the first factors is hormones. Men are more than likely to react to stress by, the hormones adrenaline and cortisol, and we get the fight or flight response. And I spoke of that in episode 1 when I talked about stress and the body and what effect stress plays on the body. And you can go back and listen to that podcast. Women, we produce both adrenaline and cortisol as well, but we also produce a chemical called oxytocin. I didn't say oxycontin. It's oxytocin. And oxytocin is also called the love hormone. And this chemical, it is responsible for labor and the contractions during childbirth when women are travailing and getting ready to give birth to a child. And it's called the love hormone because of its involvement with sexual activity. So I won't stress that. You can look that up yourself if you want to know what they say about oxytocin. And also with us women, and the social and there's social and cultural factors that come into play as well, because women often carry the burden of caregiving and sometimes holding stressful, low-status jobs. I believe that most of it, I believe, stems from family. If they are a wife, and if they are a mother. If we look back in time, the 20th century, and maybe not that far back. If we go back to I would say the 50s, and we go to the 60s, because women's liberation or the women's movement didn't happen until 1970 or 1969, around there. And when we think about this, men, so what are men responsible for? Well, men are responsible for the contractual relationships. They're the ones that do the business. They're the ones that gather the resources, right? They're the ones that go to work, and they come home with the paycheck to take care of the household. So what women do, women are the nurturers, and we are the caregivers. So we're the mothers, We take care of the home. We make sure the kids and our husbands are doing okay. That we make sure that everybody else is okay, so the household is running okay. But in the midst of that, do women, and I'm speaking of women here, are they okay? We women, we put ourselves last most of the time. And we always make sure that all the people around us, our loved ones, our husbands, our children, we always want to make sure that they are okay. And then maybe if there's time left, we'll focus on ourselves. Okay? There is a book, and I believe it was written in 1992. I had to read it when I was an undergraduate student back then. It is by, her name is Stephanie Kuntz, and her last name is spelled with a C. She wrote a book called The Way We Never Were. Okay, and she spoke of family, she spoke of marriage, she spoke of being single, she spoke of the different family structures and what goes on in families. So she did a lot of research into that. So again, the name of that book is The Way We Never Were. I believe it came out in 1992. Okay, so how do men and women, how do they approach stress management? Okay, well, sometimes men and women manage stress in the same ways. And that's why I said there's really not a big difference between 37%, I believe I said, and 31%. The top way that both genders dealt with stress was by walking and doing some other exercise. So both men and women, both genders, they always had some form of exercise or they were walking. And in regards to women, how women approach stress, they move towards activities that are connected with them, excuse me, not with them, but connected with others, such as spending time with friends and family and going to church. Women internalize stress. So we internalize stress means we beat ourselves up mentally, and as a result of doing that, women have more anxiety and more depression. So how do men deal with it? Well, men deal with stress by playing sports. So they may play basketball, football, golf. They may turn on the TV and watch the games that come on Saturday and Sunday. Some men say they listen to music. Other men say they create an escape. I don't mean they get into their car and they leave their wife and their children and they never come back. That's not what I mean when I say escape. They create. Think of the man cave. They may just go to the man cave and just chill out there and maybe have a couple of beers and watch the game, or maybe just relax and do something other than watch TV. Maybe they're gamers and they're playing the game, but men find a way that they can escape. And see, with men, as I said, women internalize stress. Men externalize stress. And as a result of men externalizing stress, they take their frustrations out on others. So that's where you get the abuse, whether it's the abuse of the woman or the abuse of the children. So that's where, because he externalizes it, he doesn't know, he can't lash out at the person or the situation that is causing him stress, so he does that to what's close to him. And that's i.e. his family or his significant other, whatever the case. But the greatest stress for both men and women, okay, so there's a greater stress in all of that. For women, it's relationship loss. So whether women had felt that they had to end a relationship, or the man ended the relationship, either way, it's a loss. And to women, that is the greatest stress. So I believe maybe next week, if not the following week, I will be talking about stress and relationships. Um, uh, Explaining what goes on there. If you guys or anyone out there wants to speak to that and be a guest, please send me an email at sismo1875 at gmail.com. We can talk. We can set up a time to talk over Zoom or over Google Meet, so you can be vetted. Okay, so the greatest loss for men, or the greatest stress for men, is performance failure. So that could be failing in the world of work, jobs. It could be also failing in the intimacy department, and I'll be circumspect about that. So, men deal with stress. They deal with stress in different ways, but that is for them the that's the greatest stressor for men is performance failure. Okay. I also want to talk about what are the least stressed and the most stressed country or countries in the world. And I'll talk about that on the other side of the break. So, what are the least stressed and the most stressed countries? So, let's start with the least stressed. Okay, so the country of Indonesia, Mongolia, Russia, Vietnam, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. I'm surprised that Russia's on here, considering what's going on with Mr. Putin and Navalny and all of that stuff going on over there. But Russia is one of the least stressed countries. So, what are the most stressed countries? Well, Greece, the Philippines, Tanzania, Albania, Iran, Sri Lanka, the United States of America. We are number 7 on this list, by the way. Uganda, Costa Rica, and Rwanda. And the most stressed is Greece. Now, I, I'm kind of, I don't understand why Greece is the most stressed because in that country, you can retire at the age of 50 in that country. And I would think, well, if you can retire that young, there shouldn't be any problems or any issues. But Greece is the most stressed country in the world. As I said before, USA, the United States, we are number 7 on this list. I believe, yeah, we are stressed. We have coronavirus going on. We have unemployment going on. We have parents who are trying to virtually teach their children while they are trying to work. So we have a myriad of things that are going on. Excuse me, and probably the situation was bad before coronavirus came into our lives. So, and this information is coming from the Gallup Global Emotions Report, which I did not know existed. So that's where this information came from. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think? Tweet me at stressingis or email me at sismo at 1875 sismo1875 at gmail.com. You can find this podcast on Google Plays, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and of course, Blog Talk Radio. Until next week, let not your heart be troubled. Relax.